Is anybody else dancing just to stay awake? I am. You can dance in place. You can find a chair. Whatever you do, it's cool. But you should maybe put your listening ears in place of your mouth because we have artists coming up. Ooh, that totally worked. Hi, y'all. We have our final art talks and art bursts of the conference, which I'm super excited about. So I'm here to introduce our MC for this next segment. Fat Mandy is a Pittsburgh-based jazz vocalist. She was voted #1 in the Best of Pittsburgh 2018 City Papers Readers Poll. She teaches voice at the Afro-American Music Institute. Her new CD, Social Justice Disco, Songs to Fight Fascists by, will be out in the spring. Check out her music online, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you find your music. And up to the stage, please give a round of applause for Fat Mandy.
Good morning. Ladies, gentlemen, everybody in between and on beyond, welcome to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thank you for blessing our three rivers with your uncommonly beautiful presences. It is my deep and distinct honor to introduce this next artist. I have had an incredible amount of respect for her for decades. She is beautiful, she is powerful, she is wildly prolific. I adore her for many reasons, the biggest of which is not just the quality of her art, it's not just the intensity of her poetry and her performance, but also how she engages our local community. I teach in a neighborhood called Homewood, and it is beautiful. She lives in Homewood, and she invites the children and the people in our neighborhood, in this neighborhood, into her actual home, onto her porch. She'll talk more about that. She is also public school educated. She is a self-taught and mother-taught visual artist based right here, like I said, in Pittsburgh, in Homewood. She is a sculptor, a poet, a photographer, and performer. Her work is social, political, personal, and spiritual, and conceptual simultaneously. It is work that seeks to be dimensionally useful. Her work has been exhibited widely. She was the 174th Matrix artist at the Wadsworth Anthemeum, ATHENNEUM. She showed at the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. She's shown at the Studio Museum of Harlem and here at the Mattress Factory. She is a founder of Love Front Porch and Art House. She is a 2018 United States Artist Fellow and a founding member of the August Wilson Center Theater Ensemble. Her exhibition, Miracles and Glory Abound, will be touring the United States beginning January of 2019 at the Flint Institute of Art. Without any further ado, I bring up onto this stage the gorgeous, powerful figure of a woman, and you are going to enjoy her, and if you don't go, put your hands together for Vanessa German!
Thank you. Give it up for Mandy, yo. My mother was the first real thug that I knew. She drew and grew a slew of ruthlessly creative, wild-winged children from the swell of her hips. She raised us up, and she aimed our faces to the stars. She said, "See, there you are, shining back at yourself from a billion brilliant light years away." Isn't that amazing? She said, "You came all of this way to live in the house of your own shine." So don't believe them, she said. Don't believe them when they tell you that the very best that you can do and be me with your life is pretty. Don't believe them when they tell you that the very best that you can do and be with the capacity of your lungs is cuter than the rest of the girls or desperate enough to disappear while trying for it. Don't believe any of that, because those are lies. The truth is, there is an entire universe of ideas alive inside of you right now, and they are spinning on the axis of your breath. So rise up and let them out. She says, this is what I can tell you about how you can live your life. She said, be creative and be brave. That way when people come for you, when they try to shut you down, when they try to convince you to be mediocre, you can refuse them. This way, you'll find you will always have the guts and the good ideas with which to make changes. She says, this is what I can give you. Be creative and be brave. This is a way to live a life. My mom was a quilter. She died 4 years ago. And my mother taught us as children growing up in mid-city Los Angeles that we have the capacity within the power of our bodies, within the mysterious, the wide and edgeless power of our humanity to literally make the air that we will breathe tomorrow from the lungs of our ideas. I was asked to come here today to share some of my life and my work and my process as an artist and as an activist. And I'm going to do that in the best, most soulful, loving way that I can. And I want to do this understanding the imperfection of what it is as an artist to actually say exactly what you're doing. How many of you sometimes don't know exactly what you're doing? It's happening. It's alive. You're becoming it at the same time that you are like birthing it and breathing it into the world. So I hold the space for the imperfection of language to hold a dimensional truth for what's happening. So my life and work as an artist and an activist began in Los Angeles. My mother was an artist and an activist. My mother was one of the kids who was at the University of Wisconsin who all the police took up together and handcuffs and put it in the back of those moving vans. My mother was a part of Black Thursday at the University of Wisconsin. I was raised an artist and an activist. The way that my mother kept us alive in Los Angeles, 1980s and 1990s, was by making us make things. She would put stuff all over the dining room table, and if we wanted like the new pair of Guess jeans or something, she'd be like, yeah, yo, so you're gonna have to make that. You're gonna have to cut that denim out. You're gonna have to get that pattern. And if you want a little Guess jeans question mark, go ahead and take that permanent marker and just, draw that triangle and that little question mark because you are not gonna be children who believe that the mall or that new clothes have the capacity to make you who you are. You're gonna have to make that yourself. So that's the way my mother raised us. And I was raised in Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s. I was raised as crack became crack. I was raised as AIDS became AIDS. And really one of the fundamental quaking truths of my life is that when I was a kid, I was afraid I was going to die young. I watched a lot of people die young. I had friends who killed people. I watched my gay male neighbors who I love just disappear. They got thinner, an ambulance would take them away, and they would be gone. And I also watched an incredible amount of fear and shame around dying from AIDS, and also having family members who were in gangs or who killed somebody or who were in prison, just a great deal of shame. And for me as a young person, that built up an incredibly volcanic sense of injustice around the ways that as humanity, we didn't have the capacity to hold a dimensional sacredness for life. Like, For example, it's wild to me that there are 2,000 people on the other side of the border in the United States who are dying, who are hungry, who are starving. Like, who here doesn't live in a city where people love to have a spaghetti dinner and they love to get stuff together? They're like, we helping. Your grandmother gonna make all the pound cakes. We gonna make all the pierogies. You gonna make the pasta, and we gonna do this together. It's wild to me that it's not with the leader that we have. So I got off track. All that to say, it's nice to have leaders who remind you how powerful you are, right? And so my mother raised me in this environment to literally make our lives with the power of art. So this is why I have this phrase up here. It says, I believe in the power of art. So if you too believe in the power of art, on the count of 3, say, I believe in the power of art. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So I believe in the power of art, I believe in the power of love, and I don't always distinguish between those two things. I believe in the power of art, I believe in the power of love, and my life and work as an artist exists and cycles out through the vein of visual art and performance art. I'm a sculptor, and, ooh, clicker. Did it move forward? Here we are. I literally have 2 computers in my pocket. So I'm a visual artist and a performance artist, and I'm going to talk about, quickly and with some pictures, about what my life and work and process looks and acts like as a visual artist, which would actually be really easy, as a visual artist, to show you pictures. Oh, y'all turn around. There's a man standing up at a table. Clap for that man. Clap for him. Clap for him. Go home. Woo! Woo, I'm glad it wasn't me, y'all. I'm glad it wasn't me. So I'm a sculptor, and I create contemporary power figures, and I call them power figures because they literally showed me the power that it took for me to stay alive. I have seriously attempted suicide 3 times in my life, and the last time was around the time that Lauryn Hill's Unplugged album came out, and 2 things happened in my life at that time. One of my friends went to Jamaica. Her son sat in a chair in the living room. He was 27 years old, and he just died. And I was like, ooh, I don't have to take pills no more. I don't have to try to jump off a bridge. I could do what he did. I could just sit in a chair and die. A fixed melancholy, right? And so at that time, listening to Lauryn Hill's Unplugged album, she said that she started to treat her life like she was a scientist. She had made some mistakes and wanted to change direction. And so I was like, I'm going to do what Lauryn Hill did. I'm going to change direction. I'm going to turn the wheel around. And at this time, I was listening to a lot of the words of Dr. King. And then I started to mysteriously see a bunch of bumper stickers and posters that were all hippie-like, and they were like, there's power in art and there's power in love. And I was like, that's my scientific experiment. I want to know if there's enough power in art to keep me from killing my own self. So every day for 6 months, in the vein of the experiment, I would leave my house with 2 plastic bags and a dog. I would walk my dog through the neighborhood of Homewood, where Mandy so gloriously teaches at the African American Music Institute, and I would walk my dog with 1 poop bag and a bag to pick up stuff. I gave myself full, unbridled agency to see things that interested me and to pick them up without fear or without judgment or without shame, which in the hood is, sort of quite a feat, because I became that strange girl in the hood who was always taking somebody's trash home, which probably kept me safe, but hey. So I would bring home all of this stuff, and I would take it down to my damp Pittsburgh basement, and I started to stack wood. And any of you who have done a repetitive meditative process know that something else happens to you in that creative process, whether it's stacking wood, painting, writing. You go to a place that is inside the inside of the inside. You become perfected in mind, body, and soul. And that's what happened to me when I created these 6 power figures over 6 months. And there was meticulously detailed, repetitive work in these sculptures that I did not call sculptures. I was not working for anybody else at the time. I was living in a state of extreme poverty. I had not had running water for more than 6 months. I would collect water in a Home Depot bucket off the back of a broken gutter and pour it into my bathtub. And one of the artists, Tina Williams Brewer, who lived around the corner, fed me a lot. But I was actually living through creating, and I found a place where I could contend with the despair that I was inside of this creative process. And at the end of those 6 months, I was at a party. There was a dealer from New York at the party. Somebody said to that dealer, hey, you'd like this kid's work? The man came to my house the next day and bought I think 4 of these sculptures for between $3,000 and $5,000 each, which taught me a couple things. One, that I could literally sustain my life, my being, and my soul, right, through this work. And after I did that, I decided, that's how I needed to live my life. I needed to live my life by letting that which I believed in most do the work that I believed most needed to be done. I call myself a citizen artist. I'm a sculptor, photographer, a writer, a performer, and with my 5 minutes left, y'all, I'm gonna show you what this looks like. Y'all ready? Y'all got seatbelts on your little conference things? Because some would be like, why she talk so fast? Some would be like, the sign language interpreter just looked like she doing liturgical dance. And a DJing at the same time. That's how fast I'm about to talk, but we're going together. So this is what my life and work looks like. I'm going to do my very best to give it to you in a way that's seamless, because while I believe in the power of art and I believe in the power of love, the word activist to me is a kind of lie. Because as a black person on this land, as a queer person on this land, there's no way I'm going to let you oppress me. There's no way I'm going to let you steal my vote. There's no way I'm going to let you say that I can't love, can't marry, can't do. So by dint of me being honest to myself, I'm going to live the life that I want to live. And you could call that activism, but you better get out of the way. So I shoot a photo series called The Blacks. I began this photo series the year that Mike Brown was killed in Ferguson, because I would go through my social media feed and I would see that young people, queer people, people of color were expressing an incredible amount of despair. And that despair came out in statements that people were saying they didn't want to leave the house. They didn't feel okay to go outside. They were just staying in the house. And so I would find those friends and I would say, hey, I'm shooting this photo series. Would you like to be in this photo series? How do you want to feel in these photos? And I would make clothing and jewelry specifically for them. They would come into my home in a really meditative environment. I was very intentional about the music and the scent in the air. I would make them up, I would put the clothes on them, and then I would parade them through the street of my neighborhood. So the photo series has this physical documentation, but it's really a really livid, almost ecstatic living performance. It is a spectacle of beauty. And we parade through the streets, and in this photograph, this little boy was riding this dangerous motorcycle through the alleyway with his friend, and he stopped and he said to his friend, he goes, oh, yo, is there somebody standing in the field? And his friend was like, yeah, it's a lady standing over there. Why are you asking? He goes, because I thought I saw an angel. I wasn't sure. And I was like, no, that's not an angel, that's Julia, get in a picture. And so what happens is, what is powerful to me about this work, what about this work is loving, because I define love as creative, understanding, redemptive, transformative goodwill, is that it creates opportunities like this. It creates opportunities like this. So I'm photographing my assistant through the neighborhood, and they were like, Miss Vanessa, is she a queen? Was she in Black Panther? Who is she? I'm like, that's Ada, that's my assistant. She live in Homewood? No, she's a college student. Where's she go to school? Yale. What's Yale? Yale's a college. Can I go to Yale? And I'm like, if you want to, you can do that. But what happens is this place of power and conversation and opportunity and a way that we reimagine the places that we live. And I live in a neighborhood that MSNBC notoriously called the most dangerous neighborhood in America. And I was like, y'all so uninventive. I find that the very best, I'm going to go through this quickly. I find that the very best artist talks for me, I speak a lot of times in museums, in colleges, and in universities, but the best artist talks I have are on the street. I no longer make singular, discrete objects like that. This photograph is called Gun with the Wind, and I would take it out into the neighborhood, have my friend photograph me, or I would put it next to me on the bus. And people would get on the bus and they'd be like, what's that? They'd be like, is that voodoo? And then all the older Black people would be like, do you go to church? And so all of that is connected to this same power, this same force of dimensional work that is intellectual, spiritual, political, cultural, simultaneously, which is really devalued by the academy. People in the academy sometimes say that I'm hyper-spiritual, and I'm like, well, what's the opposite? Because you that. And so this is some of the other work that I do. And so as a queer, big-bodied, sex-loving, can we say that on Sunday at a conference? We just did. Sex-loving woman of color, I have not been able to ingest a lot of images of my own beauty, my own glory, so I make them myself. These are Black Madonna pinups. Black Madonna as a pinup, y'all, stop me. You don't have to stop me because I'm not going to stop myself. And so this is written on these are painted on an 1890s copy of Black Beauty, which is a book about a horse. And the black woman in this country was never supposed to have freedom or resources. We were supposed to be the workhorse of the nation. We were supposed to be invisible, muscular workhorses behind the scenes. But, well, future looks different to Thomas Jefferson now, doesn't it? Serena Williams on the cover of Vogue magazine, the year that she was greatest of all time, pound for pound, the greatest of all time. Any of those articles, if you looked at the comment section, they said, but she's so ugly. She looks like a monkey. She looks like an ape. She looks like a gorilla, which is horrifying to me because I'm like, if she's the greatest of all time and all you can find to say is she looks like a gorilla, it means something is corroded in our understanding of humanity around us. So of course I turned Serena into the mother of all creation and I appropriated all these covers of Vogue magazine. So as I go around the country and I speak, I do workshops all over the place, and I always ask people if you could make a work of art that had the power to do anything, what would it do? And this little boy in Connecticut said that his work of art would have the power to cure cancer with brownies. He wrote mom on the top of the paper, and then he tried to erase it. So I no longer, I'm coming to an end, thanks, but let me finish really quick. So no longer make singular discrete objects. I believe, I gotta tell you about the Black Madonna, the fuck you. So as an artist who's making power figures, I wanted to make work that has the power to do something. And so when this shows in museums, it shows with a basket of pencil and paper, and you can release your pent up and constipated fuck yous. So what you find here when this shows is a lot of women who were like, fuck you, Bob. That's the last time you touch my titty when you're on your way to the copy machine. I really resent you for doing that. You find a way that people were unburdening themselves of this pain and of the microaggressions that they endured through the day. I was surprised how useful that was. And I only found out about how useful it was because people were posting it on Instagram. Like, thank you, Vanessa German. I did not know how much I needed to say fuck you to that man. I believe the Trick Not Hot quote that says, the next great revolutionary leader will not be a single person, but it will be an entire community of people. I make entire communities of sculptures now. I make sculptures to do the work of, to do the sacred work of connecting us to life, to soul, to spirit, to our intellectual selves in a way that is sculptural and performative. This is called Sometimes We Cannot Be With Our Bodies, and it is inspired partially by the lives and by the creative prowess of all those trans women who were killed in Mississippi and Alabama at the beginning of 2016 and have been since. And so I made a figure for all these women and children and little girls who've been murdered in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has a crisis of unsolved murders of black women and girls. And this is called Sometimes We Cannot Be With Our Bodies. I can perform any sculpture that I make and invite people from the community. This is performance of Sometimes We Cannot Be With Our Bodies. Phenomenology of Black Girlhood. This is a sculpture I made for Nia Wilson, who was killed by a white supremacist on the BART, stepping off the BART in Oakland, which is devastating to me. And what's also devastating is that we cannot grieve her thoroughly within the glory that her life was because she gets murdered over and over again by the media, which is what happens to black bodies, which is what happens to black people, that we don't get a chance to be honored and lifted up and held as sacred and mourned in a way that amplifies how valuable our lives were. This is performance of Sometimes We Cannot Be With Our Bodies, called Black Girl Stands on Street Corner in Chicago and smiles for 25 minutes consecutively, and no one tries to kill her. All of this is loving to me. The time that we have together is loving to me. This is my front porch in Homewood. This is my last little bit. I went from making small sculptures to bigger sculptures. Kids in my neighborhood would watch me because I live where there's a bus stop, and they would be like, Miss Vanessa, can we help you? And I'd be like, no. You can't help me because your grandmother keeps telling you that the woman I'm living with isn't my sister or my cousin, and that I don't go to church, so I'm scared for you to come in my yard. We're gonna be on the news. So no, you can't help. But this girl jumped my fence, and she was like, oops, Miss Vanessa, I landed by this paintbrush. She was like, can I paint your porch? I'm like, little girl, that's what you're doing. So started to pull out all the art supplies. The kids' art would just sit all over the porch. People would drive by and be like, you have a daycare? I'd be like, no. What I look like with a daycare, I don't even like these kids. And they were like, well, who are these kids? I was like, they clearly artists. And so went from their artwork getting rained on in the front porch to borrowing a house from ARCO. I think about institutional courage a lot, and I think about how the woman who runs ARCO told me I could use this house for 2 months, but every day, every month, for 2.5 years, she would sit at that board meeting, and they would be like, so are you going to let that girl in Homewood keep using that public housing house? And she was like, yes. Are we going to keep paying the utilities? Yes. Are we going to keep insuring it? Yes. Next item on the agenda. And when I think about how hard institutions have a time of being courageous, I think about her and how sometimes you just have to do the different thing that feels right to your soul and bring the language up when you got it. Thanks. So went from there. I create these signs that say, stop shooting, we love you, because I'm a ridiculous human romantic. And I thought, I'm going to make this sign that says, I love you. And somebody with a gun is going to think about his little sister and his mother, and he's not going to go shoot up a park. When I put these out, a little girl from the high school said, that's a waste of plastic and a waste of ink. And I was like, but aren't you worth it? That's a 50-cent sign. Aren't you worth it if it works a little bit? And what we came up to with between me and her friend was that she didn't think she was worth it. After 15 minutes of going back and forth, I make signs that say, love, you are so beautiful. Went from the house that I borrowed at the end of the street to these 2 houses that I purchased here with art money, y'all. Thank you, museums, for bought these 2 houses. My neighbors was like, please don't paint that house that neon blue color. My elderly neighbors was like, and I said, okay, thank you for your input. The whole front of the house is mosaicked in glass, so there's a bus stop there. Everybody who came to the bus stop worked on that mosaic at some point. Literally to this day, 80-year-old women will come and be like, Miss Vanessa, show my grandchild my E. This is what the house looks like right now. It's mosaicked in stars. The kids started to want to make signs that said their own specific things. This is just girls at the art house. We end almost every art house with a little dance party. We're always dancing. And the kids are sometimes, Miss Vanessa, like, why are you singing and dancing all the time? It's weird. And I was like, what? You don't see happy adults? And the kids were like, no. And all of this joy is important because this is a man who got murdered outside of the art house. Several people have been murdered outside of the art house. It's horrible. It's horrible. Watching people die in the street is horrible. The trauma is horrible. It endures. The fact that we as a nation are not contending with this in a real way is a genocide. It's the Holocaust. And that joy is important, the dancing. Whenever the art house doors open, anybody can come in. People think that I just love children. I'm like, yeah, they're great, but people are great. It's great to be a human and to be alive. And so whenever the doors open, anybody can come in. We have a big garden in the back. Holy sign in front. People take selfies of themselves in front of it. And I'm like, you should, because you're holy. I don't care what anybody says. You are. I don't care what you did before. You're a holy human being. Built a stage in the back of the house with a set of bleachers so I don't have to rent venues anymore. This is just some kids from the neighborhood on the stage. This is me taking this photo at Standing Rock, the day that the North Dakota government pulled the state of emergency down. I took this photo to show people that this is the day that they said there was so much rape, so much violence, so many drugs and weapons at camp. That's what camp looked like. This is my friend Morena, who was attacked by a mercenary's dog at Standing Rock on American soil. And I'm showing you this because maybe sometimes you don't know that this stuff really happens. But it really happened. He's the person who pulled the dog off the pregnant woman that Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Was trying to get the dog off of, and they charged Amy Goodman with rioting and all these other things. That's the man who pulled that dog off that pregnant woman. The woman had the baby at camp. So being an activist and an artist, being somebody who believes in love, being somebody who believes in doing things they want isn't always easy. This is the kind of letters that people create secret Facebook accounts to send to me. And And I'm showing you this because I know those of you who are artists and activists here, you know that it's not easy. You know that it's not always romantic. You know that it hurts. You know that sometimes you get death threats and you go on and you do it anyway because it's your life. It's the reason you have lungs. It's the reason you have lungs. So this is my friend Moreno again. He's the feather carrier for the Anishinaabe. And I'm showing that to you because we're on Native land. We're on Seneca Nation land right now. And I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, everybody here who's making art. I believe in you. I hope you believe in yourselves. And I hope you have people who love you and who encourage you and who see you and who lift you up and who are creative and brave on your behalf. Y'all have a good day.
And now you know why we love Vanessa German. Vanessa German, y'all. I would like to bring up to the stage a dear woman is going to be introducing our next art talker. So if we could please have the incredible presence of Rosie Gordon-Wallace. That would be wildly exciting. Look at her, she is a vision. Ms. Rosie Gordon-Wallace, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between.
I need here to hold on, my hand shake. Oh, you can't give me 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Whew. Hello, everyone. I have the distinct pleasure to introduce to you Ana Mendez. Ana Mendez is a Cuban-American professional dancer and performance artist based in Miami. She has been commissioned by our lovely Miami Light Project and their Here and Now Festival. She has worked and shown her work at the Rosa de la Cruz Collection in Miami, Miami Art Museum, now called the Perez Art Museum, Art Center South, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Bass Fisher International, Pioneer Winter Collective. These are all collectives in Miami. I met her this morning. I live in Miami, and I had never seen her work. I say that to say, this little lady is a Pittsburgh bombastic performance artist, but somehow I missed her. She has also performed during Art Week, which is also called Art Basel Crazy Miami Week that just ended last week. People come from all over the world. She has traveled to Buenos Aires, Rosa, is that how I say it? In Argentina. Last year, she was commissioned by the Miami-Dade College Live Arts Lab. She's created new work and has presented this work will present this work in spring of 2019. Ana Mendez is tiny, but she's a powerhouse. Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the art burst. Ana Mendez, Cuban-American.
There's a light outside. You can see it from here. Maybe George will take us there. How much longer will this take? I'm getting very tired. You look great. I worry this will go on forever.
Give it up for Ana Mendez. So that was really exciting. I don't know what we just saw, but I'm going to look her up and check more of her out because that was weird and awesome. So, yes. Please give it up for all of our artists, and please, at this time, I would also like you to give it up for she without whom none of this would be necessary. I would like you to give it up for our president and CEO of NPN. Give it up for Caitlin Strokosh!
Thank you, Fat Mandy. So we're going to reset the stage here a little bit, and I'm just going to chat maybe while that's happening, or I'll pull chairs up at the same time, because we all multitask in the arts. We're a little behind schedule, but sometimes having the artist go on is the absolutely right and perfect thing to do. So I'm not mad at it. And basically, it just means you're going to hear less from me in closing remarks, which is totally fine. I want to circle back on a conversation that we started with at the beginning of the conference and make sure our folks are here in the house, ready to go. Yes, okay. So we started the conference by talking about our failure to connect and engage better with Native community here in Pittsburgh, with the history here in Pittsburgh, with Native folks in general. And I love Vanessa's phrase about institutional courage. And I think sometimes when you fuck up, institutional courage means saying you fuck up and figuring out how you're going to do better. It's the last day, you know, there's F-bombs everywhere. This is how we roll at NPN. So we set our intentions at the beginning of the conference to say that we wish to do better, and we wish to make a commitment to taking action to honor people better in the future. And so Rosie Seamus and Christopher Morgan have really generously offered their time this morning to just share with us their perspectives on Native protocols and to help us set our intentions better for the future. And when I say our intentions, I mean our NPNs, but also hopefully ours as a community of learning and movement building that we aspire to. So they're gonna join me up here on stage and share a little with us. There's be some opportunities for some questions, and then we're gonna have a dance party out of here. All right. Why don't you two sit together? So thank you both for joining us. I think you've been introduced already, but Rosie Seamus, Christopher Morgan, thanks for being here.
Test.
Hello, hi. 안녕하세요. I want to, could we have the first image? There's 2 images. Okay. So I'm going to read something that my cousin wrote, my cousin Oren Lyons of the Onondaga. He's a faith keeper. As long as the grass grows green, water flows downhill, and the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, the 2-row wampum belt treaty has meaning. It's an agreement. You stay in your ship, we stay in our canoe. This is a symbol of our commitment to peace, friendship, and reciprocity. We celebrate this treaty with all of you, nation to nation, by renewing it. Treaties belong to all of us. So if you are a citizen of the United States, any treaty with a native nation is also your treaty. And my question is, what do you want to do to renew and celebrate our treaties together? Just because we have been removed from this place called Pittsburgh, just because this place was stolen from us, just because we cannot be here en masse right now, does not mean we are not from this place. I do not speak for my people, the Seneca. That is not my role. We all have roles. I'm an artist. And when my people travel and do speak, they always speak at least in pairs. And this is a part of how we practice accountability, integrity, and attention to intention, which are at the heart of our diplomacy. If you don't know, the Constitution of the United States was loosely created based on the Confederacy of the Haudenosaunee, whose territory we are on. We are also, this is a place of convergence. So I'm not a historian on Pittsburgh, nor do I want to be. And I haven't had the time to research that convergence, the history of also the Lenape people here, the Wyandot people who are here, the other Haudenosaunee nations. And I say that because it isn't my job as an artist to do that work all the time. It is actually all of our jobs. And apparently no one did that work, which is why we're having this conversation. And I don't say that actually to shame anybody at all. We've had great conversations about this. But to actually just to say that the work belongs to all of us. And so how are we going to renew and celebrate our treaties? And one of the ways that a lot of people have probably heard about that is being done across the nation is with something called a land acknowledgement that is read. There are also other forms of reciprocity with Native people when we are on their territories, which are a welcoming from a Native nation, a blessing, which can include a song or a prayer. But the history and timeline of colonization from the Doctrine of Discovery in 1493 all the way through the breaking of treaties at Standing Rock makes our histories very complicated. When we're here on the East Coast, it is much more difficult in many ways to be able to connect with Native people in urban areas because you know what? You have waves of colonization that have gone through Turtle Island. You have the Piscataway and the other people who held off colonization for a long time, and then you have the Haudenosaunee, and I'm not a historian, but you have this sort of like different nations that have held colonization off before it went west of the Mississippi. And so And we are over 500 and, oh, I'm going to lose the number. Is it 67, 76? Well, it's 76. And that's just the recognized tribes within the United States with all unique cultures and beliefs. And so there is no one land acknowledgement that blanketly will appease all Native people. And I say that because it is a very important thing to realize. And I do want this to be a conversation. I just feel like there's some backstory on this that I really need to give. One of the best, people ask me, so like, well, I'm new in this one city and I want to do something around blah, 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 and so they ask me like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not a committee. I don't make up, I can't even represent my own tribes, let alone 576 other tribes to tell you how to do this. But the first thing you have to do is probably go and meet some Native people. Whether they belong to the place in terms of like the tribe whose homeland that is or not. And this is, it took us a long time to get to this point. Let's see, Doctrine of Discovery 1493. To now, it's going to take a long time, and there are going to be layers and layers of us beginning to figure this out in a new way. If you have a dance program, for instance, I'll use this as an example. Maybe find out who the people are that are dancing in that area. Is it a powwow group? Is it a traditional group? Is it a group that does cultural dances for state fairs? Is it any of those things? Who are they? What do they want? Maybe they don't care about land acknowledgement, but what they do care about is reciprocity. Maybe what they care about is that you hire for your dance organization a Native curator, first Native curator of a major dance organization in Turtle Island, Christopher Morgan. I mean, there are all different kinds of ways in which these things can be done. So, can you go to the next slide? I just want to put this up. So I just bought this postcard. I have a postcard collection. This is a group of corn planter Senecas. So some of these are my ancestors from 1908. They are here in Pittsburgh. They are the head, they led in the celebration of the sesquicentennial of Pittsburgh. So even in 1908, there was still a relationship between this city and our people where these people were honored as the original people of this place. We'll just leave this picture up. I love this because there's a couple of guys smiling, which you never see. But this is just sort of the introduction that I want to give for this.
Aloha. So my people are thousands of miles away and separated from this continent by an ocean, and yet many people consider that part of Turtle Island. Sometimes I think of it as part of Polynesia. Sometimes I think of it as the place where all the crazy navigators decided to sail to in a hollowed out log, traveling by the stars and the currents, and it's actually its own completely isolated place. And yet, I am often standing in allyship, really strong, firm allyship with my brothers and sisters from Turtle Island. And it's a complex place to be, like a lot of us are in very complex places to be. Being regularly asked to be the Native spokesperson and living and working on Turtle Island, I cannot possibly represent that. I would not, I do not, and Rosie just owned that same task, and yet here I am in front of a room of people. I think that one other Hawaiian that was still here today is not in the room. There were two here, some people that lived there, but the only two that I know by blood are not here with me, right? So that lets you know how far away I am from my people. You would not find a photograph of Hawaiians here. You might in Massachusetts from the 1800s. And in a casual conversation that, two casual conversations that I want to bring up. One was someone who is so fascinated just last night at about 1 a.m. at the Sweet Suite, what I knew about the history of the Hawaiian people and colonization. And she asked if I had learned that. Where did I learn that from? And it was a combination of personal family knowledge shared and research that I had to do to learn about myself. It was not taught to me in school, my own history. That is actually an integral part of our US history, big like air quotes around that all of these nations should be being taught about. And she was fascinated and wants to continue the conversation to learn more, and that's what we're here for, because we are in a room of incredible agents of change that can have an incredibly powerful ripple and echo that will be heard loudly and ring so strong and true for all of the amazing different voices and people that are here that convene and then spread back out around the United States. So to amplify that particular aspect of this. The second casual conversation that I had happened yesterday afternoon with another presenter that's part of the network, who was talking about their land acknowledgement practices and was shocked that I, as a Native person, had not yet instituted land acknowledgement practices where I work. I've been there just over 1 year. Like anything new, there's a ton of shit to do, right? We all know that from our own lives. Just setting up your own new apartment takes weeks, months, years sometimes. There's still that box that's unpacked. This is one that I want to unpack very carefully. I need to build those relationships, as Rosie just said. I can't just write a script, even if I've done a bit of historical research, I can't just write a script that I have a house manager read before a show. I mean, I could, but I won't, because the part of me that is Native knows that that's not enough. And in fact, the part of us that are artists, that especially in this network where I see so much search for truth and integrity and first voice art, we know that that's not right. And so many of these institutions are led by arts administrators who have that same art heart and are working artists themselves. So I share that anecdote, why my institution is not there yet. We will get there, as a reflection of how this is a journey that continues to take time. I'm hopeful that in the next 1 to 2 years I will get there. But it may take me a little longer, and it may not look like what I think it looks like now. Just like when I make a piece of art, I have an image of what it's gonna look like, and then the art tells me something different. I have an image of what this might look like, and the community I engage with might tell me differently. So I wanted to share where I'm at and that institution is at, because it's a reminder that we can all start doing the work. That is the most important part of it, to start doing the work, but also to recognize that these are, just like so many other processes, take a lot of time. That's where I'm at.
So before we move on to actually having a little bit of a dialogue, and we don't have a lot of time, is that one of the things that I do in my work, especially in any of panel discussions or anything, is that I always want to center Native voices. So if there are any other Native people that are here that would like to introduce themselves or would like to say anything, would you raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you? And if you don't want to, it's totally okay. But we want to make sure that if you are here and you want to be heard, we want you to be heard first. No? Okay. All right. Did I see anyone? Should I put my glasses on? Okay. All right. So this should be a discussion and, not a lecture from Rosie Seamus and Chris Morgan. But so let's do that. It's not that we're sitting up here with some kind of panel of experts. We just know what we know from our own experiences. But maybe other people have questions or observations or anything that they want to share.
Yes.
I'll get this party started or continue it. I'm Megs Retigliano. I lead Burning Man's global network. For those of you that don't know, Burning Man is an event in the Nevada desert of 80,000 people. People come from all over the world. And one of the key issues that we're confronting as a community has to do with cultural appropriation. People think it's glamorous and chic to come out to the desert and wear feather mohawks and bindis and do ceremonies that evoke other cultural traditions. And some may argue strongly that it's actually a celebration of the culture or an honor of the culture that they're inspired by. But there's also this side, and it's unresolved, and it might always be, of people that say, well, develop your own traditions. So I guess I'm just bringing that into the room, and I wonder if other artistic groups or networks confront those issues or have anything playing out in their communities.
What a wonderful invitation. Mahalo. I'll just jump in with two thoughts. One is, if the culture that you are inspired by cannot be found and seen or heard directly from that culture, step back and make space for that actual first voice to emerge. When that first voice has emerged and can be found in all places and spaces and accessible to all people, perhaps then we can have a conversation about appropriate sharing. If that culture is not being remunerated and other cultures and people are profiting off their bodies, off of their slave labor, off of their tiny hands, off of their long history of ceding their lands, make space for those first voices to emerge first. And when they are stable financially, we can start talking about appropriate cultural sharing. The third thought I'll say is appropriation is happening. I don't need to say this to this room because I see a lot of the faces that I know, but I will say it. In so many ways that go beyond the far-off cultures or the exoticized cultures, appropriation happens in many of our contemporary performance spaces, down to a really challenging experience we had at our space at Dance Place last year, and we had to confront the artists afterwards. I use that word confront carefully. We engaged in a deep dialogue with white presenting women who did things that appropriate from my perception as a brown person, not an African American or black person, that were appropriating from black culture in a way that I had serious questions about. And usually on any given weekend, about 50% of Dance Place's audience is black, self-identified as black or African American. So we had to have that real talk with them. And I was shocked to learn that it had been presented in 4 other spaces, some of which are in this room right now, and no one had said anything. So we have to be willing to engage in the conversation as much as possible. We just went directly to the artist, and I have to give mad props to the associate curator, Sarah Greenbaum from Dance Place, for doing that work. So it's multi-layered. It's how are we as facilitators of change engaging in the sometimes difficult and uncomfortable conversations and like just going for it with warmth and love and like all of the rigor that comes with a difficult conversation. And then when can you just step back and make space for that first voice to emerge? That was a lot, sorry. Anyone out there have thoughts on that? Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for initiating this. I just quickly want to say that a couple of observations. One, in no particular order, but one being that we often say in the arts and in contemporary arts that it's an amazing, beautiful, vulnerable place to live in an indeterminacy, and I'm guilty of that as well. Because I say guilty because not only is it a wonderful thing and a truth, but it's also a privilege, and a privilege that comes from contemporary and postmodern culture and things like that. So to live in indeterminacy also means to be vulnerable, but it also means to acknowledge your own vulnerability and complicity simultaneously. And those things are interwoven, they're inseparable. So for example, and what made me think of this is that one of the projects I'm working on now is a photo essay about my personal and family and cultural identity on a national basis, but also a historical level. So my grandfather, my paternal grandfather was born in Maui, and Christopher and I had a conversation about this. You know, I'm very excited to excavate that history, especially because it lets me reconnect with the history of incarceration of my family and Japanese Americans at the same time. The whole reason my family was there in the first place is because we were also raping the land of Christopher's ancestors, because we were complicit in that. My grandfather, who emigrated, built the flumes for the refinery that was raping the land that finally closed 2 years ago, but they still own the water rights to the whole island. So how can we each, in our own way, make ourselves vulnerable to everything that we are and everything that we can be? So thank you.
I hate starting sentences with "in the interest of time," but I want to say actually in the interest of our Pittsburgh hosts who are looking forward to an incredible set of culture tours a little later this afternoon. I want to just come back up to the stage and ask Rosie and Christopher if they have some parting thoughts that they want to leave with us. And I also want to say that let's continue this conversation beyond this room, beyond this day, beyond this year. Let's come back together a year from now, changed, and let's keep doing this. As Christopher so well stated, this is an extraordinary network of change makers and folks who understand what it is to do things deeply. And I would like for NPN to commit, which is a commitment I can personally make, which is kind of awesome, and NPN to commit to this journey and this process and this action together. And I want to just turn it back to the two of you if you have parting thoughts.
So my parting thought is just a little example of how something like this can go. I don't know if any of you remember, but a couple of years ago, the French-Moroccan artist, Latifa Lebisi, was being presented through American Realness at MoMA PS1 and was doing a performance naked with a fake headdress. And some of us, and I think I was probably the loudest, objected to this, and that has to do with that I have Dakota family members. I have adopted Dakota family members in my family, and I live in that part of the country, and have Dakota elders. And so through many dialogues with American Realness, who then dropped the show, but MoMA PS1 continue to do it. And fundraising. I brought Christopher and some Dakota elders and some other Native people to the performance to have a dialogue directly with the artist and with the presenter. And this may seem like this is has to do with cultural appropriation, but it also has to do with reciprocity. So the Movement Research Performance Journal published an article about Latifa with the headdress on. And someone handed it to me and said, "Have you seen this?" And I said, "No." And then they asked me, "Would you do a response to this?" And I said, "No, because you've never asked me to write anything about my own work." So I said, if you want to make this right, then you will dedicate an entire issue to Native artists. So lo and behold, if you haven't gotten your Movement Research Performance Journal, I'm going to tell you why. Because to do such a thing actually takes about 4 times longer than it takes them to do the other ones. It is a lot of work, and there are only 2 of us working on it, but you will get it next year, 2019. So that is one way in which a sort of like process that starts from something that was, I will just say, really wrong, to a way in which you can work together to create something that is really done in reciprocity and celebrates the diversity of Native people. That isn't so much like land acknowledgement, it's not so much a welcoming, but it is one method, and it, to me, is in the whole same circle of all of those methods. And I think that's the way we need to be thinking about these relationships.
It's amazing, actually. I can feel really comfortable in front of groups of people, but somehow this feels incredibly vulnerable, this moment in time to be discussing these tough things. So I'm really grateful to Caitlin and to NPN for walking the walk and doing the difficult work. It's inspiring, and I plan to bring it to my communities, all of them. And so in Hawaii, which is about 5,000 miles away, I have to call my ancestors in, send them out, see yours in what I share. It is an oli mahalo that is quite non-sectarian. It talks about a particular flower in Hawaii that actually, due to plant diseases that have been brought in, is under great threat. It is the first flower that blooms after a volcanic eruption. It is a bright red glowing ember called the lehua, and it is the first sign of life after an incredible amount of destruction, and we move forward into life. O nauna I ka halame ka lehua, e hale lehua no I anaka no e. O ka uno I ane ano ine, e he li ane ho I o ka hiki mai. Hiki mai no oko, hiki pu no me ke aloha, the only word that people tend to know from my language. Aloha e, aloha e. Mahalo.
Thank you, Christopher and Rosie. I'm going to stand up here and just keep saying some thank yous to people while I look to see if Stephanie McKee is in the room, and if she is, to come up here, and if she's not, also, even if she is, anybody else from New Orleans who wants to come up to this stage as we dance off this last bit of the conference. What I am here to do is welcome Stephanie McKee from Junebug in New Orleans. We got a thing going next year.
We got a thing happening next year. NPN.
What's happening next year?
NPN's annual conference will be in the Big Easy. Thank you very much. So you need to know you're coming to New Orleans, where the rain showers just means that there's more blessings happening on everybody there, right? You're coming to New Orleans where everything is spicy, including the women, including some men, right? We're coming to New Orleans, the place that is the inspiration and has been the inspiration for many. Artistic inspirations are there in New Orleans. There is so much there for you. We want to make it fun for you when you come to New Orleans, but we also want you to know that New Orleans is not a heartbreak story. New Orleans is the place where people come and get inspired, but also learn from the many, many lessons that our city has to offer. So you will be in our city learning from the beautiful artistry and the beautiful artists that are there, from our community of organizers and activists and artivists. You have an opportunity to be there. So we are expecting to see your faces and many more faces in New Orleans. Are you with me?
Yes.
I don't think I heard you. Are you with me? All right.
All right, New Orleans, you want to stand up and lead us in a dance here, and I'm just going to shout some thank yous as we all just do whatever we're doing next.
If you're from New Orleans, you come on up here and act like you know. Act like you know if you're from New Orleans.
So thank you to HowlRound, to our captioners, to our ASL folks. Thank you to Lisa Mount for visual recording. Thank you to the staff of NPN, the most phenomenal people I get to work with every day. The board of directors, Orchid Robinson in particular, Katie from Federal Conference, Diana Lowe, our local site coordinator, the AV tech guys in the back of the room, everybody who organized a panel or a session or a conversation or a platicas, all of you who came here to spend this time with us, and let's do it.
Now, everybody that comes will know that we'll turn around. The Saints are playing on tomorrow. I know we might be boycotting, but we are kind of winning right now. I'm just saying. And we're going to see all of the music. This is one version in New Orleans, but we have funkier stuff.
Yes,
I just want to let you know that.
So we second line.
Had a little playmate. She used to walk and talk with me. Now my baby has a
In that number.